Okay, here's my watch list for Monday. Let's just start with the SPY real quick, though. We broke down out of that channel on Thursday, then Friday gapped down a little bit and ended up closing basically right where we opened, which gives you this little doji-looking candle. So now what happens? Are we going to come, come down and test resistance from this area, 190-ish area, or is it back up from here? So it's hard to say. There's no way to say actually, because whenever you close right where you opened, it just shows equilibrium at the moment. Now we've had a weekend. Is the macro news going to move it either way? So with that in mind, I'm just going to show you my watch list, and I'll always watch the SPY while trading, as I'm sure you all do. So SPR, pretty nice breakout here. Look at that volume on Friday. So I'm just going to watch this one as one of the strongest stocks out there for a possible continuation. Don't have any kind of trigger price for you. WWE spiked on earnings, and we see how beaten up this thing is. Spiked on earnings on Thursday, but gave it all back. Then Friday started to work its way back up. So, it's got nice support below. So let's watch this one for a potential long setup. Maybe it pushes up into that gap. PTEN. Okay, you had resistance back here at the 34 area, and you can see right here became support. And we're 4 or 5 days down in a row and went down through 34, but ended up closing above it. So if this can hold above this 34 area, early in the morning, this one could be a decent long. Now a different kind of bounce play, PTEN, I'll go back to that real quick. You could argue is a pretty strong stock, except for when the market sold off, and now is at support. This is a different kind of bounce play. CBI, this is a beaten up stock that I think just might be overdone. Nice support back here on in the $60 area. Now I've said this before, support is just an area, and you can actually see it. It actually went down, as far as this one day, which is probably what 57.50ish. So, but it's in an area that it's been a long time, over a month back here last summer, and really if you go back a little farther, it's been a lot of time in this area. And so whenever you get down to an area where it has pretty good support and it's gotten there pretty quickly, I generally tend to think in terms of a possible bounce. Now keep in mind I'm a day trader, so I'm just looking for a trade, but this one finally, it had so many red days in a row and finally closed about where it opened. So I'll be looking for a bounce on that one with a proper intraday setup. ETN, kind of like CBI. Beaten up pretty good here, right? And I've got a couple lines drawn at in the area of support, and it's down there now. So I'll be looking for a bounce in that one as well. Nope, that's not the one I wanted. Yeah, it is CHK. CHK. This isn't a great looking chart, but what's interesting to me and why it landed on my watch list, you had resistance back here and here, right here again. At the $26 area, then look what happens here. It became support, and now you've had a couple days down in a row, and you have the 200-day right there, which it just touched on Friday. So looking for it to hold. If this can hold above 26, this could be a decent bounce. On Monday, what do we have next? PETM, PetSmart. After this gap up, a lot of times this happens. You get a gap up, and then you get a range. For literally, for a long time. It can last months. So, it's, whoops, you can see that one line. I'll put a red line there too. It's in a range, and it's coming down to the bottom of the range. And again, you also notice it's hitting the 200-day here. So I'm kind of looking for a bounce in this one. 4 or 5 days down in a row into the 200-day, and you're nearing the bottom of the range after the gap as well. Try that again. International Paper, IP. Another one that I like at support at 47. Had this big move down, bigger move back up, and then now worked its way all the way back down to that 47 area. And you also notice the 200-day. So these, anytime you get support and the 200-day, it's even more interesting to me for a bounce. So, I've got some alerts in with my broker, and if some of these stocks hit these support prices, I'll be looking to take an entry. Unless the market's, getting killed or something, all right? WFT. Another one, after this gap up here, went to almost 25. Hasn't broken a previous day's high since, but now you're getting down to support. It's got decent support. It bounced pretty nicely off this 2170 area back here, and again here, and that's it. That's it. I was going to say there's a moving average there too, but there's not. It's below the 50-day now. But anyway, that's another one that I think is worth watching. Have an alert in for the 2170 area on WFT. Royal Caribbean RCL after the gap up on earnings, 4 or 5 days down in a row. I talked about stocks going into a range. This one kind of got into the gap here. Didn't do a very good job there drawing that range. But anyway, you can see that it's down below and into the gap. Having said that, let's go to 30s. Having said that, it hasn't broken its its first hour high. In other words, it's put in its high in the first hour there. That was Friday. That's Thursday, Wednesday, so Tuesday. So what I'm looking for, and the only thing really I'm looking for in RCL, if it can hold above, this recent support at 59, I'm looking for an afternoon high of day break because you haven't had that really since it hit the top back here. So I'm looking for an afternoon high of day break. Maybe it trades in a 50-cent range for 4 hours and then breaks to the upside. I'll be looking to go long. That's really the only thing I'm looking for in RCL. I don't have a great support price. CCJ had a nice run from 19 to 2167, and now back down, I don't know, 7, 8 days in a row, and back down near 19. So this one around 19, I'll be looking to go long, again, unless the market's getting killed. And GameStop, GME, I'll zoom in a little bit here. Nice support for a good couple weeks there. It was holding this area, which was around 40.76, 40.80. And it's down 4 days in a row. If we can get to that line around 40.80, I'll be looking for a long entry. Of course, I always use stops on these, and they're based upon intraday candlesticks and so on, price and support. So I can't say I'm going to exactly buy it here and here's my stop. I'm going to have to watch it and see. But those in the chat room, I'll certainly let you know exactly how I'm trading them. That is about it. I got a couple others in my notes that aren't on the watch list on the member page. GoPro, GPRO, bounced nicely off 40 back here. If I go to 60-minute candles, but it doesn't have a ton of support there. It's just one place that it bounced. Plus, it's the psychological whole number 40, and then below that 36. So this is worth looking at for a potential bounce around 40, in my opinion. I certainly wouldn't trade heavy if that happens. And then JKS, another one in my notes, 3 days down, it flushed below 24, but ended up closing right near there. And if you go to 5-minute candles, you got kind of a long base Friday afternoon. So if this can get above 24 and hold, this might be a decent long. The next support, obviously, is down here at 22. It reminds me a little bit of First Solar. On Friday, we traded this one in the chat room. You see the 200-day was coming into play again, but also it was down 3 or 4 days in a row to recent support. Switching to 5-minute candles, when it looked like this, because it had flushed below support but then kind of came back above it, you had a clearly defined resistance at 61.20, and again here in that same area. So when it looked like this, I called it long, I believe 61.25, which triggered right there, and a stop below 61. And the rest of the day it was up and ended up closing pretty strong, up over 62. So that was a nice little late day trade. But there's an example of how I try to play the bottoms. I either buy at a flush below support with candlestick shape, and then maybe switch to 2 5-minute candles and look for the bounce, or I'll do something like First Solar and watch it for a while, let it bounce, and if it comes back up and defines clearly defined area and then breaks above it, I'll go long. So that's kind of how I play support and resistance. All right, guys, I'm going to quit babbling. That's a lot to digest. And ironically, I may trade several of these, and I may trade none of these. It all depends on what happens as the market unfolds on Monday. But pretty good list to start with here. Have a good night.